August 2018 special edition webinar. Disclaimers: we are not attorneys. We are not offering legal advice. When you have legal questions, hire an attorney. This is the second Appraiser eLearning special edition webinar for August 2018. I'm your host, Hal Humphreys. Today, a continuation of the business of appraising. We're joined by Dustin Harris, the appraiser coach today. And in our last webinar with Dustin, we covered some kind of broad brush issues of how to run an appraisal practice more efficiently with some business processes. In this edition, we're going to dive a little bit deeper. And Dustin, welcome. We're glad you're here. Really quickly, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thanks, Hal. It's really good to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's always fun to educate. It's always fun to get out there and get the word out, as they say. Let's just start with the name, I guess, the appraiser coach. I sometimes get confused, and if anybody's seen me, they know that's not a sports analogy. I was not much of a sports. I think I tried every sport when I was a kid, and I was really good, Hal, at warming the benches. I found, but that's okay. One thing that I am really good at is running a successful appraisal business and then teaching others how to do the same thing. And that's really where the coaching, the mentoring comes in, the teaching, the education. I spend a lot of time helping other appraisers to be great business owners. Again, we talked last time about most appraisers are great technicians. They're wonderful appraisers. They're the top of their game. But when it comes to running a business, sometimes they need a little help, and that's where I come in.
I love it. And tell us about your services. I know we talked about this last time, but really quickly, what does the appraiser coach offer?
We really offer all kinds of levels depending on what the end user needs. I've got a lot of free services out there, including my weekly podcast, my blog that comes out pretty much on a weekly basis as well. Those are both free. You can go to theappraisercoach.com and sign up for those, or just subscribe to the podcast at iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you get your podcasts. But we, of course, have some paid memberships as well, where you get some deeper content. I've got an all-star team where once a month I send out a 4,500 word newsletter that is sports themed, by the way. It's focused around the sports idea, but it's nothing to do with sports. It's just in the look and feel. We talk really tactical about appraising, really tactical about business ownership tips and tricks and ideas. And every single month in that newsletter, Hal, I have a section called the chalkboard. Okay, this is where the analogy comes in. In other words, this is the coach in the locker room with a chalkboard, and we're talking about the plays, and we're really talking about the nuts and bolts of running an appraisal business. And every single month in that particular section of the newsletter, and this is just one section of a full 8-page newsletter, I talk very specific about detailed things that I do in my office that are very different than what my competition does. And of course, we've got the Appraiser Academy, where we're meeting online once a month and taking your questions. It's kind of a big group mastermind, if you will, where you can ask any question you want. And then, of course, I've got my mastermind groups throughout the country. 6 different cities where I meet with a handful of appraisers in a hotel conference room, and we hammer it out. We help them to take their business from where it's at to where they want it to be. So do a lot of education, a lot of fun, rubbing shoulders with appraisers across the country.
And tell me real quick, what cities do you go to do the masterminds?
Yeah, great question. There's 6 masterminds. We are in starting on the East Coast. We're in Washington, D.C. We're in Chicago. We also meet in Salt Lake City, in Dallas, and there are 2 of them in Las Vegas. We found that Las Vegas is an easy place for people to travel to, and so every quarter we meet back to back Monday, Tuesday in Las Vegas. Those are 2 different groups, but and all of these are different groups. But you join a specific group in a specific city. Now you can travel to other cities if you'd like, but specifically you have your mastermind family, we call them, where you get to know 6 or 7 other appraisers who are high achieving appraisers who will help you to do the same.
I love it. That sounds great. So diving right into the business of appraising, Pick us up where we left off last week.
Yeah. Let's recap a little bit. So last time, Hal, we talked a little bit about kind of a 5,000-foot view, if you will, talking from the top down. What does your appraisal office look like? And one of the things that we talked about was making sure that you have three legs to that stool. That you've got your technology in place, that you've got your human resources in place, and that you've got systems or procedures that will allow you to be able to do what you need to do with your business. We got into a little bit of detail last time, Hal, you'll remember. There were some specific apps that I threw out, some specific details, but what I really like to do is kind of dive in today and give some more meat and potatoes of what this looks like for your appraisal business. Now, I want to caveat this first and say, every appraisal office is different. Every appraisal office is unique. Every appraiser is unique. And, I have to tell you a funny story, not too far off in the weeds, Hal. When I first started coaching, it really came out of a love for teaching. And I love teaching. I love education. And I was very successful as a real estate appraiser, but I wasn't doing what I was passionate about. And that's what you and I are doing today: education, talking, and sharing information with others that can help them to be better. So I decided I was going to brand myself as the appraiser coach, and I was going to go out and teach appraisers how to be better at what they do. And I really honestly thought, because my office worked so well, that all I had to do was bottle that up and pretty much just give it to the masses and say, hey, do it like I do it, and you'll be successful. Well, you probably know the end of this story, Hal. It didn't quite work out that way. What I found very quickly in the first, 6 months of coaching was there's a reason that there's coaches out there. There's a reason there's mentors out there, because every appraiser is different. Every appraisal office is different. And I've been able to work one-on-one with appraisers, hundreds of them, and take them from where they're at to where they want to be. And every single situation's been unique. So let's talk specific. If you don't mind, I'm going to give some ideas here of how individuals can and probably even at least should look at different ideas. And these are boots on the ground, as my friend Blaine Fine says. This is practical and tactical stuff, right? This is hands in the dirt. Trying to utilize the principles that you and I talked about last time. Let's talk first of all about building a foundation, if you will. Let's talk hardware. Okay. I always start especially when I'm dealing one-on-one with an appraiser, and I do a lot of mentoring one-on-one. And we often start with what I call the vision story. And the first meeting that we have, whether it be online or in person, is we sit down and say, okay, talk to me about your vision. Talk to me about where your appraisal office looks, or what it looks like 2 to 3 years from now. Okay, we don't want to get too far out, 5 to 10 years. Who knows? We could all be dead at that point. But 2 to 3 years, I think all of us can kind of see the vision. What is it that your day-to-day looks like? What does your week-to-week look like? What does it your month-to-month looks like? What does your appraisal office look like? Okay, and then we get very, very detailed as to setting that up. And one of the things that we start with, Hal, is building a foundation on the technology side, the hardware side. Okay, so one of the things that we talk about is deciding whether you're going to work from something as simple as a desktop, a laptop, a server. What does that look like? Now, I can tell you most of my clients, they opt with the server because it allows them to be able to expand. And when I say server, it doesn't have to be some fancy server. Okay, don't think racks here. We're talking just a computer that is dedicated to running your software, running whatever file management system that you have for your work files, and being able to remote in from anywhere. Hal, this morning, an interesting experience. Got a message early this morning as my first employee came into work. And I do have a brick and mortar building, by the way. It's not needed, but I currently do, and my server is housed there. And she gets to work and she messaged me and says, oh, the electricity's out. I said, okay, is that a temporary thing or a permanent thing? And she said, well, I don't know. There's some workers outside. And long story short, she went out and talked to them. They basically said, hey, we're down for the whole day, minimum. And I thought, oh, that's tough, because we're kind of in this business of efficiencies, right? It was a matter of about 90 minutes, and we were up and going again. Why? Because all I had to do was get power, and I got it from a neighbor, by the way. I should show you the pictures. I got power from a neighbor. We stretched it across the alleyway and plugged everything in. All I have to have, Hal, is my server up and running and the internet going. That's it. Those two things, and all of my employees can work from anywhere that they are. So I've got an employee today I've got an employee working from my hometown. Actually, 3 of them are working from my hometown. A contractor working from another town. I've got my my operations manager working from our hometown. I've got an individual working from California, and I've got an individual working from the Philippines, and they're all working off of the same server. And that's what we talk about when we talk about building a foundation: the ability to have that groundwork laid, so that appraisers can work from wherever they want. Hal, I kid you not, I carry my laptop wherever I go, and I literally have worked from 35,000 feet in the air to Podunk, Wyoming, on the side of the road, and I'm able to log into my server to work on. We happen to use the Total software, to my work files, to everything that I need as an appraiser. I can work from my laptop, and not just get by, Hal. I'm talking efficiencies. I'm talking multiple monitors. I'm talking about high speed. I'm talking about the ability to be able to work very efficiently. And I know a lot of listeners are saying, well, Dustin, come on, that's kind of overkill, don't you think? I mean, I'm just an appraiser, right? I'm telling you, folks, if you are not valuing your time, if you're not valuing the amount of time that you spend on each of these appraisal reports, then you just don't get it. And that's fine. We can teach you. We can get you there, right? But that's what it's all about. Being down for 90 minutes this morning was an inconvenience, but it wasn't a catastrophe like it would have been to be down the entire day. And I think that that's the point of building that foundation. And so, Hal, I talk to appraisers about the importance of their systems, and that you're not just getting by, that you spend the money that it's going to take, because it's an investment, not a cost, as we talked about last time. What does your RAM look like? What are your drives? Are you using solid state drives? Is that important? Folks, yes, it's important, right? Are you using dual monitors? Are you using triple monitors? I know appraisers that have 7 or 8 monitors in front of them, and they use them all. It's not overkill. And they understand the importance of the foundation and the hardware that it takes. What is your physical setup? If folks can see me, I'm bouncing around here today. Everybody's saying, well, where's his chair? Where's his chair? Right? I'm at a standing desk, and it's a matter of hitting a button, and it automatically lowers, and I can sit in a chair. Those things may sound like extras, but to me, they're necessities. The ability to be able to work the way that I want to work and need to work. Internet speed. I think a lot of times people talk about their downloads. What is my download speed? But what about your upload speed? If you're working off of a server, you're going to need the ability to send data up through that server, and it's going to be absolutely critical that you have the right speed there. Are you using a VoIP system, a voice over IP system? We looked at a lot of different companies out there, 8x8, Grasshopper, Vonage. We finally settled on Ring Central, and it hasn't been perfect, but it's been great. And we're able to use that from wherever we want, including my cell phone. It looks as if I'm calling from the office. We got music on hold. We record every phone call, and trust me, I mean, it's a matter of probably once a day I download a phone call directly into the work file and keep it just in case. Those things are, they may sound like secondary things, but they're absolutely important.
And I like the idea of approaching this with the attitude of this is a foundation. If you come out of the ground with good technology, good machines, as powerful as you can get, as powerful as you can stomach, it's 2018. There's absolutely zero excuse for not having high-speed internet. You've got to have as high a speed as you possibly can. These are things that are just critical. And I know a lot of people think, well, I'm going to get by on a laptop and a modem, whatever. I don't think they sell modems. I'm going to save money here. And what ends up happening is you save money on the front end. You end up spending way more than that on the back end. If you spend the money on the front end, it makes your back end a lot easier to deal with.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. The other thing that we talk a lot about, and I'm big on, and I've been big on it for a long, long time, is mobile appraising. By mobile, I mean, are you using a laser measuring device? Are you using software in the field? So your tablet, your smartphone. I work off of this device right here, Hal. This is an iPhone 8 Plus. It's got big enough screen that the real estate. The screen real estate is enough for me to even do these big fancy homes that I do in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It works really, really well. I use a Disto for my laser measuring device. I know others that use Bosch that get by just fine. But the ability to be able to be in the field, to mobily enter information once, okay, you're not re-inspecting when you get back to the office. You put that information in once, whether it be the photos, whether it be the data, whether it be the sketch. You do it one time, it's all there, you upload it to the cloud, and then having someone on the opposite side of that computer to catch that, if you will. You're flipping it up to the cloud, they're downloading it, they're getting it all prepped and ready to go. So by the time you get back to the office in the afternoon, you can sit down and you've really reduced the number of man hours that you needed to be able to complete that assignment. You've not cut the quality. You've simply made it more efficient to be able to get a high quality product out.
And I still know appraisers who go out into the field with a clipboard and a piece of graph paper and a pencil and will draw out the house on that. And then they'll go back to the office and they will personally take the time to sit down and draw this into a sketch program. It seems like a huge waste of time.
Well, I will go so far as to say, Hal, I've had experience where I've talked to appraisers who are in that situation, who will to my face say, if I'm not doing that, I know that I'm not doing a good job, or some form of that. In other words, they are so used to doing things the way that they've always done them that to change to them is not change in and of itself. To them, change is wrong because it's not what they've always done.
It's dangerous. It feels dangerous. It's new. It's unusual. So they don't like it.
Yeah. Now, luckily, that's not most of appraisers. Most appraisers, I think, are pretty open to change. They're pretty open to these new tools and technologies. Let's talk software for just a little bit, Hal. Sometimes I think we overlook the importance of software. I told you the software that I use, but there's great software all over out there. I'm friends with the CEOs of the major software vendors out there, and I'm telling you, they all have some really cool tools and some abilities to be able to accomplish appraisal, if you will, and the appraisal the way that we know it, form filling, if you will. But look at the software that you're using, appraisers, and ask yourself, could you do better? Not just with another software program, but what about the software program that you're already using? Are you utilizing the tools that are already embedded in the software that you're already paying for? I'll tell you, with the software that I'm using, how there are tools in a la mode coming out my ears, and some of them I just don't even use. Some of them, I put them off to the side and say, that's neat, that's cool, maybe someday, but right now, I've got some other focuses. But I'll tell you, it's amazing when I sit down with appraisers and we start to go through the software that they are utilizing, whether it be a la mode or something else, and I say, okay, let's talk about what's here. Let's talk about the experiences that you can have with the software that you're already paying for. And it's amazing how many appraisers don't even realize what's already embedded and that they're paying for with the software that they use.
Wait, it'll do that?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is I'm kind of partial to a couple of different programs that I'm not going to throw out the names of. But your file management program, if anybody listens to my podcast, they know which one I'm referring to, the one that I use. Now, it's not the only one out there. When I say file management program, I mean the ability to keep track of everything that you're doing as an appraiser. And I know some appraisers come to me and say, well, Dustin, that's nice, but I'm just a single man office. I'm just a single woman office. I don't need all of that. Really? Because let me show you what's here. The ability to be able to, at a snapshot, sit down and say, okay, how many appraisals have I done this month? What is my revenue this month? How much of that's been paid? How much of that am I still looking to pay or to get paid on? How many assignments have I done for attorneys this month? How many assignments have I done for realtors this month? How many assignments have I done for homeowners this month? How many assignments have I done for lenders? How many assignments of those are AMCs versus local lending? What would that do to your appraisal business? Okay, put your CEO hat on for just a second. What would that do to your appraisal business to be able to answer those questions? I talk to pretty much anybody that will listen, Hal, about the importance of working on your business and not just in your business. Okay. It used to be that I tell people spend at least an hour a week where you set aside everything, where you don't get in your appraisal software, if you will, that you don't necessarily even hook your computer up to the internet. Okay. Where you can insulate yourself, you can turn off your phone for an hour and you can simply focus on the vision and the goals of your appraisal office, your appraisal business. Okay. And I'll tell you at this point, Hal, it's not quite there, but I almost spend more time working on my business than I do in my business anymore. And it's amazing when you get to that point that you can delegate, when you get to that point when you can grow your business, when you get to that point that you can really focus on what the vision of your business looks like down the road, and then start working on the little intricacies that will allow you to get there. I'll tell you, it's a whole different world. And I know that appraisers sometimes get burned out. Okay, I hear that a lot. I'm tired of this, that, and the other. I'm tired of dealing with AMCs. I'm tired of dealing with scope creep. I'm tired of dealing with software. I'm tired of dealing all of these revision requests and fill in the blank. Right? I don't know any appraiser who I've been able to take from where they were to where they can be, where they're the business owner primarily, and maybe an appraiser technician second, that have said I'm burned out on that. Most appraisers really enjoy running their business. It's the technical side of getting down in the dirt that they sometimes get a little bit burned out on.
Let me ask you this. Do you find in your coaching business, do you have, if you want to know the answer to pretty much anything and you've got a room full of appraisers, you're going to have a room full of different answers and they're all going to be certain about their answer.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Do you have any pushback from people saying, I can't delegate that?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I hear this term or a type of this term, if you will, over and over and over again, and that is if I'm not going to do it, then it's not going to get done right. Okay, in order for something to get done right, it's got to be done yourself. You've heard this multiple times. My mentor taught me the same thing. When I got ready to hire my first secretary, that literally came out of his mouth, and I love him to death. He's my dad. Hi, Dad. But he had struggled with hiring. He had struggled with some bad experiences, as we talked about last time. And for him, it just was not an option to hire. If you want to get it done right, you got to do it yourself. And of course, as appraisers, we have this added problem, if you will, I use problem in air quotes, of the state boards, of USPAP, of making sure that we're doing what we should be doing as far as the laws and ethics and morals go of what we do, right? How much of that can you delegate? What should you delegate? What should you not delegate? If you do delegate, what is your responsibility as far as disclosing what you delegated? And these are things that we go through and we talk through. And I think pretty much any appraiser who is open to ideas, who's open to change, will go through that process and say, okay, you know what? Yeah, I was looking at it this way. I do see that there is a different way to look at things.
The interesting thing I've found in the past, I don't know, 5-6 years is the appraisers that I've met who are willing to let go of control of certain things and delegate the stuff that they don't actually have to do themselves. The ones that are willing to do those things are happier.
Absolutely.
The ones who insist on doing every step of the process themselves because nobody else will possibly do it right and nobody else will get it the right way, and or the variation on the I'm required by law to do this all myself, which is just simply not true.
Right.
Those guys walk around like Eeyore. They've got a weight on their shoulders and they look miserable all the time.
We gave an analogy last time, Hal, of the doctor's office and what it would be like if you walked in and the doctor himself or herself did everything, checked you in, took your blood pressure, took your weight, sat you back, talked to you for an hour and a half, on and on and on. What would that be like? Well, most of us, I think, would agree that maybe we would be looking, for the exit. What kind of setup are we doing here? And I literally years ago, my wife was going to a chiropractor, and this particular chiropractor was an interesting situation. He literally was in that situation. Now, he was not a young chiropractor. He had been doing this many, many years, but he had this attitude that, if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. And he literally was the secretary, the receptionist, the PA, if you will. I don't know what the equivalent is for chiropractors, but he literally was the only person. His wife would come in once in a while and she would help out. But for the most part, it was from start to finish. This guy was doing everything. And I'll be honest with you, it made me a little bit leery. Is this guy a professional or what? And I think that most of our clients, our customers, would look at us the same way. Now, I know what some appraisers are saying. Well, I've been doing this for years this way, and that's what they're used to. And that probably is true. If you're dealing with AMCs or lenders, they're used to appraisers working on their own. But what does it do for their perception when they call and get a professional and courteous uh, receptionist, or the ability to be able to utilize more than just yourself, so that you have the opportunity to be able to turn these appraisals around more quickly than you could before, and also with higher quality. Sometimes I get kickback, Hal, about the quality thing, and they say, if you don't do it yourself, then it's probably not going to be done right. Well, I'll tell you, I beg to differ, because there's this principle of a second set of eyes, a third set of eyes, a fourth set of eyes. In my office, there's not an appraisal that goes out the door, an appraisal report that goes out the door, that at least 3 sets of eyes have been on that, and usually it's 4. Usually 4 individuals have looked through that report line by line, check mark by check mark, and read it from start to finish to make sure that it is ironclad before it goes out the door. How many appraisers have that ability even, and are they utilizing it if they do? In other words, are they utilizing the opinion of somebody else to say, hey, look at this, what are your thoughts?
I've in the past I dealt with appraisers who would someone would offer to review their work for them because they were solo practitioners. They were working out of their home or whatever, and I've had a couple of them balk at even that. Someone offering to review their work, they don't want to be told this isn't maybe best practice or whatever. They're afraid of that, and at the end of the day, the most efficient and most professional appraisers are the ones who do have one, two, three other set, at least one other set of eyes on your work, just to make sure that before it goes, if you spend all day working on 4 different reports, at the end of the day, you're going to get those mixed up. If you're the only person working on it, and you're the only person looking at it, you know what I'm saying? Your words are going to swim. You're used to that box being that way, and you're just not going to see it anymore. It's
You know,
useful
you
to have
talked
another set of eyes.
you talked about misinformation. There's a lot of misinformation out there, Hal, as you know. And sometimes when I talk to appraisers, they bring up confidentiality. They bring up, some of these buzzwords that we've heard, but maybe we don't completely understand, especially when it comes to USPAP. What things do I need to keep confidential? What can I share with my peers? What can I share with other people in the office? And I'll tell you, if there's anything that the listeners walk away with today, it would be this: there is a lot of misinformation, and I'm telling you, there's a lot better way to do things. And there's the right way and the wrong way. Okay. And we do things the right way. We do things in such a way that we are USPAP compliant, that we are state law compliant. And there's 50 states out there, Hal, and I'm telling you, there's 50 sets of state laws. There's some crazy things that I've seen over the years, but appraisers, if they're careful, if they're doing things right, can and should delegate to others, follow up, manage, okay, audit, as we talked about last time, make sure that things are being done right, but run your business like any other professional runs their business, and you're going to be happier, you're going to be healthier, you're going to, and I mean that, healthier. I've seen too many appraisers die early, literally, and it's sad because we completely wear ourselves out, folks. I'll tell you, I cannot stress this enough, Hal. I wake up every morning excited to go to work. I really do. I love my business. I love my work. I love what I do. And it took me a while to get there. I was getting burned out myself several years ago, and I'd only been doing it a dozen years. And I was tired of doing it all myself. There's a better way to do things.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about the foundational issues of buying the right equipment. We've discussed software a little bit. What's the next step?
Yeah, so before we move into, I'm going to talk a little bit about apps as well, some things that you can do with your phone. But I want to stress and make sure as we go back to software for a little bit, because this really applies to both hardware and software, and that is the importance of being paperless. I know appraisers have heard about it. Maybe they're scared to do it. I'm telling you, it will change your life. It really will. And that's really, again, as we talk about foundation, when I deal one-on-one with appraisers and say, okay, where do you want to be? Most appraisers, I would say, in 3 years, they say, hey, listen, I want to be working less and making more money. Okay, that's a pretty common thing, and I can help them do that. But we have to be more specific. Okay, what does that really look like? Are you the appraiser? Are you the only appraiser? Do you have a firm? Is it a small firm? Is it a big firm? What does that look like foundation wise? And then we can start to get into how to get there. But one of the common elements that most any appraiser really needs, Hal, is the ability to be able to work from anywhere. Okay, you really do not need a brick and mortar office anymore. You need somewhere to store your software. Okay, that may be on the quote unquote cloud. That means somebody else is storing it for you. It may be you yourself from your home, from your office, what have you. You don't need that office like you did in the past. Now, one of the things that working remotely will allow you to do is also give you more freedom to be able to hire remotely as well. You don't have to stick with your neighbors and your friends and the people that you know in your hometown anymore like you did in the past. And one of the ways to do that is to be paperless, to have all of your files paperless, that you're not even hitting the print button that goes to an actual printer anymore, but rather goes to PDF, and the ability to be able to print your software or your MLS sheets, your tax sheets, your entire portfolio, if you will, on each of these reports. The ability to be able to do everything in the field and have everything in the field. One of the biggest questions that I get, Hal, is if I go mobile, what about that work file? When the state says, hey, I need a work file, I don't have a work file anymore. Well, yeah, you do. It's just digital. In fact, it's probably more robust than your paper work file was.
Not only is it more robust, but here's the thing: if you're doing paper files and you're storing those paper files and you're a high volume shop, at the end of the day, you're going to be spending a lot of money on storing those files in a storage container somewhere. You know what I'm saying? It's just like
absolutely
too much to deal with. So the paperless idea is brilliant. And I've got an attorney friend that I work with who will use an iPad in the field, and he will actually take affidavits from people in the field and have that signed, and the notary public will do their notary seal in a digital format. The whole thing is digital. There's no paper document. So I mean,
it's amazing.
To say I have paper files, just not right.
Now, I think a lot of appraisers are probably on board with the idea of paperless, but I have yet to meet an appraiser who was not paperless, that wanted to go paperless, that number one was not scared to do so. Okay. And number two, who hadn't been very glad that they did it once they did it and wish they had done it sooner. And really, it's not as big a deal as most people think. It's a matter of, instead of hitting print to the printer, it's a matter of hitting print to the PDF and utilizing the same file system, the same folder system that they've used in the past. Now, I'll tell you something funny, Hal. Even with my mastermind group, I can't tell you how often we start talking about these little idiosyncrasies of how we run our business, and how often appraisers will say, well, yeah, I'm paperless. Well, I mean, I still print out the order because I got to have that, but everything else is paperless. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. What did you say? I still print out the order because that's where I make all my notes. I'm thinking, you do know how to make notes on PDF, right? What, you can do that? I mean, there's so many technologies today that will allow you to be completely paperless that there's no reason not to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's talk apps for just a second. Hal, I know our time is short. Some of the things that we talked about last time, but just to reiterate, do you have the mobile app on your phone, on your tablet? Okay. I talked about the file management system just a few minutes ago. Folks, I can do that from my mobile device. It's an app. It's great. And I can see at the, anybody asks me about any appraisal report, I can quickly, within 5 seconds, I can have that up and I can see it, and I know exactly where we're at in the process. I'm constantly on my smartphone. What do they say now? Most of computing, I think 80% of what we do, at least online research, is happening on our mobile phones these days. And it's just absolutely amazing what we can do. And I think appraisers are sometimes falling short as to, utilizing the technology that they literally have in their hand 24/7. File share, to be able to share files. We happen to use Google, the Google Drive, and I can pull up all of the work file right there on my phone whenever I need it. I've got, you talk about going paperless. I've got a scanner on my phone that if somebody rolls out blueprints, or, a lot of times before we go to an appointment, we will have sent them an email, the homeowner, and say, please have available for the appraiser the list of improvements that you've done in the last 15 years, how long you've owned the house, whether or not it's been up for sale in the last, these various things that we're going to ask anyway. And I would say about 20% of the time they actually do that, okay? But they hand me a piece of paper and they say, hey, I got your email. Here's the answers to your question. Well, guess what? I take a picture of that. It goes immediately into PDF. It drops immediately into my work file, and I hand it back to them. And they look at me, no, that's for you. And I said, I got it. I got it on my phone. It's in digital format. It's not going to get lost at this point. the ability to be able to keep track of things. We talked about Evernote. I think you said something like you live and die by Evernote every day, right?
When I got your note today about what we're going to be talking about, and saw that it was in Evernote, I was like, oh, that's so awesome.
Keeping track of your mileage, for tax purposes. MyLikeU is something I use. I use Expensify to keep track of all of my receipts, my business receipts. They're right there. I don't have to keep paper copies in a shoebox like a lot of people do. And we talked last time about the ability to communicate with the office last time. WhatsApp is what we've used. We've used Voxer. We've used HeyTel. A lot of people using Slack. Man, I'll tell you how I literally, probably a little too much. I deal with this little doohickey every single day, and constantly am on my phone, keeping track of what's going on with my appraisal business. And that's one of the reasons I'm able to be successful, is because those tools are there. We just need to learn to utilize them efficiently.
Are there any other apps that you like personally, just kind of keep yourself organized or get things done?
Yeah, there's apps that I use all day long, every day, that are not even appraisal related. For example, I love listening to podcasts, so I'm on the podcast app on a regular basis. I've got one called Tape a Call Pro. I use an iPhone, so I'm sure there's an equivalent out there. If I ever need to record a phone call, I can do it right from my phone. I don't have to pay for an extra service to do that. I utilize all kinds of things every day. We talked about VoIP. I've got the VoIP app on my phone, so that when I call out, if I'm running late to an appointment, for example, now typically I'll have my assistant do this. I'll just message her or him and say, hey, let the homeowner know I'm running a little bit late. But for whatever reason, if I need to call directly, and it does happen, I pick up my VoIP app and I click on it, and it calls out as if it's the office. And their caller ID shows that, and it's just amazing the things that you can utilize today. My fitness app, or my Fitness Pal, I use that. I know it doesn't look like it, Hal, but I'm working on it, right? Keeping track of my calories and my workouts and different things. I use Todoist, and to keep track of the to-do list, the stuff that's kind of back burner that I don't have to take care of today. All of these things really integrate to be able to allow me to be as efficient as possible.
I love it. There are so many useful apps out there, and it's hard to even get your head around where to start. But a couple that number one, Evernote, I use all the time, and it's on my phone. I can access any of the cases that I'm working on. I can access any of the projects that we have going on here at the office. I've got an app on my phone called Scanner Pro, which will scan any document, turn it to a PDF. Yep. I just learned the other day, and I'm a Luddite by nature. I tend to be the guy that likes to have paper and print things out. But on the iPhone, in the Notes app, you can scan directly into a note. Just by hitting the if you're in a note and you want to scan a document, you can hit the add button and scan a document right into your notes on your iPhone. There's so many things you can do with these things. I'm going to tell you one other app that I use a lot that I find to be crazy useful. It's called Forest app.
Okay, this is a new one on me.
So Forest app will allow you to grow different varieties of trees. And you basically select what kind of tree you want to grow, and you set a timer and you press start. Once you do that, the phone is locked. So I've got this, I don't know if you can see this on the screen right here, but basically I've got a 45-minute timer set with a bonsai tree. And if I hit plant, it says keep up the good work. And if I leave the phone and come back and say, oh, wait a minute, I'd like to, go on Facebook or go on Twitter or whatever, and I say give up, it says, are you sure you want to give up? This will kill your cute little tree.
I love this.
It's a great way to keep yourself off of your smartphone when you're spending time with friends or family and those kind of things. It's just my little
I love this. So you and I talked earlier about working on your business, not in your business. And one of the things that I teach my clients is that you really need to separate yourself from the outside world. Social media, email, phone calls, all of that, you've got to put it aside, because This is the time for you to focus on growing your business. This is a perfect app for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love
It's
it.
fantastic.
Love
So,
it.
we're getting really close down here on the time business. Give us kind of your last couple things that you
You bet.
think appraisers need to go away
Yeah, a
with.
couple things. So we've talked about hardware, we've talked about software, and mostly we're talking about computers at this point. Let's get into some real nuts and bolts, physical stuff as well. I think it's important that appraisers have what I call my appraiser bag, right? It's what I put in the car with me, or it's already there in the car with me. Now everybody appraises different areas, and they do different types of appraisals, and not everybody is going to need all of the tools that I have in my appraisal bag. But some of the things that I would throw out that people should look at is an extension letter. For example, if you do FHA, if you do VA, if you do some of these other reports that your client, your scope of work requires you to get up in the attic, I've seen appraisers run around with ladders on top of their car, strapped down, and they're running around like they're a utility truck. I'll tell you, there's some really great tools out there. One of them is called the Extend and Climb. I think it's just XTEND, Extend and Climb. You can get it on Amazon. That's like $150, and you can get the 10-foot, the 12-foot version. They literally weigh about 15 pounds. They're not very, very hard. Even for a small appraiser to use, they can carry it around with one hand. They fold down literally into about a 2-foot by 3-foot section, if you will, and they, like I said, they extend up to 12 foot. There's really not very many attics that I can't get into with that type of tool, and it fits nicely in my trunk. I don't even see it unless I need it, which, by the way, is pretty rare. Normally, we have the homeowner open up those and make those things accessible for us anyway. We're talking, vacant homes where maybe I'm using a lockbox to get in and I need to get up in the attic. Snowshoes in my area, that's pretty essential. Probably half a dozen times a year, I actually don them and use them. Yes, I charge more when I get the snowshoe in. And yes, I do count that on my fitness app as a workout. If you were wondering. Boots, the muddy season. In Idaho, that's early spring, late fall, where it's muddy. I don't want to get my nice shoes dirty. Masks, gloves, booties, those types of things that you may not think about. But these are boots on the ground. Again, tactical ideas that appraisers need to think about so they can do their job more efficiently. You don't want to be on a job, wish you needed something, and not have it.
Absolutely. In my business, the private investigations business, we have what we call a go bag, which is the same thing you're talking about. For surveillance operatives, you'll have, binoculars and, laser measure and all kinds of things. But for appraisers, I remember when I was doing full-time real estate appraisal, I had a go bag that would live either in the car or in the office. And it had these things in it, the stuff that you just need on a fairly regular basis. And if you go out prepared, it saves time. And that's, at the end of the day, we're talking about efficiencies. Anytime you can shave a little bit of time off. And I just looked up this extend and climb ladder. It's a fantastic looking product. I love it.
It is cool. It is cool. So yeah, it's one of the things that I use, not all the time, but maybe a couple times a month. But it's nice to have when you need it.
Very good. One last tip and trick before we get off the phone.
I would just talk about the importance of continuing to educate yourself, whether it be self-education as an appraiser or as a business owner. Again, I can't stress this enough, Hal. I meet with appraisers all the time. And when I ask them what they do, their first answer is, I'm an appraiser, right? Which is fine. That's great. But what if your first answer was, I'm a business owner? Oh, really? What kind of business do you own? Well, and then you talk about appraisal from there. I think appraisers, if they start looking at themselves as a CEO, as the business owner, I tell people, you can be a great appraiser, but if you're not a great business owner, your great appraising won't last. In other words, if you can't run a business efficiently and be successful at it, okay. One of the things that you and I have talked about is burnout. And how appraisers tend to get burned out on what they do. And I'll tell you, being able to run a successful business, I don't care how hard appraising gets. I don't know how difficult, I don't care how difficult it might get for appraisers. If you are running a successful business and you're making good money at what you do, it's going to be pretty hard to get burned out on that.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. So, Dustin, thank you so much for joining us and doing this special edition webinar for us. Appraiser eLearning is tickled to have you as a guest, as always. For the folks out there in the crowd, do me a favor right now while we're on this webinar. Just underneath your screen there's a subscribe button. Click on that. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us out a great deal to have more subscribers. So take a second, go down underneath the screen there, and click subscribe to the Appraiser eLearning YouTube channel. Dustin, thank you again for being here.
My pleasure, my friend. Thank you. Anytime.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
All right,
And
my friend.
that is the end of the Appraiser eLearning Special Edition webinar for August 2018.